I found out my father slept with my fiancée the night before our wedding. Not by accident. I walked in on them. She didn't see me at first. Neither did he. I stood in the hallway, silent, behind the door. Just long enough to hear her say, "Just don't tell him. After tomorrow, it won't matter." And he laughed. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I just turned, walked back down the hall, and stepped outside into the cold night air like nothing had happened. Like my life hadn't just detonated beneath my feet. My name is Adam Whitaker, 32 years old, structural engineer, son of respected retired Judge Harold Whitaker, and, as of 10 hours ago, fiancé to Lauren Brooks. At least, that's what everyone thought. They still do. Because I didn't confront anyone. Not then. Not when I saw them. Not when my stomach dropped and my chest went hollow. Not when I realized the two people I trusted most had destroyed everything I built, behind my back, in my home, hours before I was supposed to promise forever. No, I stayed silent. I didn't shout. I made a decision. I was going to walk down that aisle. I was going to stand at the altar, smile for the cameras, hold her hands while she said, "I do." And then I was going to end it. On my terms. With every guest watching. With my mother sitting in the front row, unsuspecting. With her family grinning from ear to ear. With my father standing as best man, holding the ring he didn't deserve to touch. I went home that night and opened my laptop. Started writing. I pulled records, compiled screenshots, phone logs, photos, everything. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted exposure. I didn't sleep. I didn't blink. I ran like a machine through every file, every plan, every option. By sunrise, I had everything I needed. I showered, shaved, got dressed like it was any other wedding day. Lauren texted me at 7:02 a.m. "Can't believe today's finally here. I love you." I replied, "Me too." It wasn't a lie. I couldn't believe it either. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 p.m. just outside Charleston at a garden venue we'd booked a year in advance. The setup was flawless. The weather perfect. Her dress, ivory, flowing, untouched by guilt. Everyone kept saying how lucky we were. How beautiful we looked together. I smiled. I shook hands. I hugged my father. He looked me in the eye and said, "You ready, son?" I nodded. He had no idea what was coming. They both thought I'd never know. They had no idea I was standing on the edge of the cliff, not to fall, but to watch them tumble. And when I said, "I do," they wouldn't hear the rest. But everyone else would. Most people think heartbreak makes you weak. They expect breakdowns, shouting, alcohol, vanishing acts. But real betrayal, the kind that crawls under your skin and settles in your bones, it doesn't always make noise. Sometimes, it makes you precise. I woke up on the morning of my wedding with a pulse of 58. My mind was sharp, movement smooth, heart steady. I ironed my shirt, tied my tie, ate breakfast alone in silence. No distractions. I wasn't the man they thought I'd be. And that was my advantage. At 10 a.m., the photographer arrived. She asked if I wanted solo portraits done first. I nodded, posed, smiled. The shots would look perfect. Exactly the kind of memory you'd frame on a mantle. She didn't know I'd already decided to burn it all down. Lauren's father showed up around noon. He shook my hand like I was already his son. Said how proud he was. How lucky we both were. I thanked him. Even looked him in the eye. He had no idea his daughter had already ripped that future out by the roots. I didn't flinch. My best man, my father, arrived last. Late, of course. Said traffic was hell, but he made it in time. He clapped me on the shoulder, asked if I was nervous. I told him I'd never been more ready in my life. That was the truth. Every move I made that day was calculated. Every breath choreographed. I didn't just want to confront them. I wanted the entire room to feel it. The collapse. The impact. The silence afterward. I'd prepared a speech, not the usual groom speech. Not the thank you for coming nonsense. This was something else. Something permanent. I transferred it onto a clean flash drive, labeled only with the word vows. Gave it to the AV tech right before the ceremony. Told him it was a surprise video I wanted played after the I do. He smiled and nodded. Said no problem. He'd cue it up as soon as I gave the signal. I nodded. My hands were steady. At 2:50 p.m., I stood behind the tall wooden doors leading to the altar. The music started. Guests whispered. Cameras were lifted. Lauren stood at the top of the aisle, glowing. To everyone else, she looked like a woman in love. To me, She looked like a woman with no idea the ground was about to open under her feet. And my father, standing to my left, proud, smug, oblivious, had no idea the bullet was already midair. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. Because nothing is louder than the man who chooses silence before the explosion. The moment I saw her walking down the aisle, I didn't feel pain. I felt distance. Like I was watching someone else's life unfold in front of me. Lauren smiled, slow and rehearsed, as her father led her toward me. Her gown swayed like some bridal commercial. Perfect, crisp, untouchable. But I knew what was underneath. She didn't look at my father, not directly. She couldn't. He was standing just to my left, hands folded, eyes gleaming like a proud parent about to hand off his son into a new life. The irony was almost cinematic. When she reached me, I took her hand. Hers trembled slightly. Nerves, I guessed. Guilt, maybe. But I didn't flinch. I squeezed it gently. Let her believe I still believed. The officiant began. Polished words about unity, sacrifice, and trust. All the things they'd already violated. My mother watched from the front row, beaming. She adored Lauren. Called her the calm in my storm. I wondered what she'd say if she saw the video I'd saved to the second flash drive, the one with the hallway footage. But that was for later. Right now, all I had to do was wait. The vows began. Lauren went first. She spoke about loyalty, about growing old together, about how I made her feel safe. Safe. That word almost made me laugh. She ended with a soft, "I love you," and a kiss to the back of my hand. The crowd melted. Then it was my turn. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the second flash drive, not the one labeled vows. This one said, truth. I turned to the AV technician in the back, gave a small nod. He gave a thumbs up. I looked back at Lauren. She smiled. I smiled back. And then I said the words. I do. But before we finish this ceremony, I have something to share. The screen behind us lit up. Everyone turned. At first, just static. Then, time-stamped footage. A hallway. A door. My house. Lauren's voice. Just don't tell him. After tomorrow, it won't matter. Then my father's laugh. The crowd went silent. My mother gasped. Lauren's knees buckled slightly. She turned to me, mouth parted. My father's face went white. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there, ring still in hand, as the betrayal played out behind us. Raw, undeniable, real. Then I turned to the officiant and said calmly, I won't be needing your services today. And I walked off the altar. No yelling. No confrontation. Just quiet, surgical exposure. Let them scramble to explain themselves. Let the guests whisper. I wasn't there for a wedding anymore. I was there for a reckoning. The sound that followed wasn't screaming. It was worse. It was confusion. Disbelief. People didn't know where to look. The screen, me, Lauren, or my father. There was no soundtrack, no explanation. Just silence, and a video that said everything I never needed to say. I walked off the altar without looking back. I didn't storm. I didn't run. I walked like a man who knew exactly where he was going. I heard someone call my name behind me. Maybe Lauren, maybe my mother. I didn't turn around. I'd already said my piece. I made it to the edge of the garden before the chaos erupted behind me. Shouts. Gasps. Someone dropped a champagne flute. Still, I didn't stop. My car was parked out front. I slid into the driver's seat, closed the door, and let the silence wash over me. Not a word spoken. Not a tear shed. Just the end of a story that never should have started. I'd sent a second package that morning to Lauren's father. Delivered right to his hotel room. Inside was a printed transcript of the audio I'd recorded, the same one I played on screen. At the bottom, I wrote, This is who your daughter really is. I thought you deserved to know before she wears your last name. I left out the part about my father. That wasn't his burden. He'd find out the rest soon enough. Back at the venue, texts started coming in. Friends, cousins, groomsmen. Some asked if it was real. Others already knew it was. I didn't respond to any of them. Let them wonder. Let them connect the dots. Let the silence speak for me. I wasn't interested in gossip. I was interested in closure. I drove 2 hours west, to a small cabin I'd rented months earlier for what was supposed to be our honeymoon. She never knew about it. I'd planned it as a surprise, a quiet getaway in the mountains. It still served that purpose, just not the way I originally intended. When I got there, I lit a fire, opened a bottle of whiskey, sat by the window, and watched the smoke curl into the night. Then I opened the envelope I'd written weeks earlier, my vows. Real ones. Not scripted. Not performative. Just truth. I read them aloud, slowly, like a man burying something sacred. Then I burned the page. Watched it blacken and curl and vanish. Some people get revenge by yelling, breaking, burning. I didn't need that. I just had to give them space to destroy themselves. And they did. Right on cue. By the next morning, my phone had 63 missed calls. 21 from Lauren. 17 from my father. The rest were scattered. Friends, family, people who were there, people who heard. Some texts were angry. Some were confused. One from my cousin just said, "You okay?" I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I didn't have words, but because nothing I could say would match what they'd already seen. Lauren left 5 voicemails. None were apologies. Each one tried to reframe the story. She was drunk. She was scared. She thought I didn't really want the wedding. The last one ended with her screaming, saying I humiliated her in front of everyone who mattered. That was the moment I realized she still didn't get it. I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I was trying to end a performance. And I had. Cleanly. Methodically. Permanently. I drove back into town around noon. Wore a hoodie, baseball cap. No one noticed me. At the venue, the staff was cleaning up what was left of the fairy tale, flowers tossed, tablecloths folded, uneaten food dumped into trash bags. The manager spotted me. He looked nervous, unsure what to say. I paid the remaining balance in full. Tipped the staff double. They didn't cause the mess. They just set the stage. Back home, I changed the locks. Canceled the honeymoon flights. Called my lawyer. I didn't want revenge in court. I wanted distance. And legally, that starts with precision. I sent Lauren a certified letter stating that our engagement was terminated due to infidelity. I included her own words, time-stamped, transcribed, undeniable. Told her to collect whatever belongings she left in the guest room by Friday. After that, I'd have them boxed and sent to her father. A week passed. Then 2. The world didn't end. The whispers faded. People moved on. But I didn't forget. My father tried to contact me twice. Then he sent a letter, handwritten, like he thought that would make it more personal. He called it a lapse in judgment. Said he missed my mother. Said Lauren reminded him of better times. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just wanted access again. That letter went into the fire too. Because forgiveness isn't given for convenience. It's earned through change. And neither of them had changed. They just got caught. Let them sit in their silence. Let them explain it over dinners, through therapy, to whoever would still listen. I had nothing to prove anymore. No one to protect. And for the first time in my life, no one to pretend for. I didn't shave for a week. Didn't go out. Didn't explain. The world kept spinning, but I stayed exactly where I was. Not because I was broken, but because I wasn't going to be rushed into healing on anyone else's timeline. This wasn't grief. This was recalibration. I cleared out the guest room first. Boxed up every trace of Lauren. Her books, her backup clothes, the lotion she left on the nightstand. I didn't smell it. I didn't pause over memories. I just packed. She'd left enough fingerprints in that room to remind me who she really was, and who I had almost become had I let it continue. By the end of the second week, I'd closed our joint bank account, canceled our lease on the new apartment, and notified her that her belongings were available for pickup at a local storage facility, under her name, prepaid for 1 month. Anything after that wasn't my problem. The ring? I didn't sell it. I didn't smash it either. I dropped it into the bottom of a drawer beside the burned envelope of vows. Not as a keepsake, as a reminder. A reminder that trusting someone doesn't mean you hand them your entire foundation. You let them earn their place. And if they fracture it, you don't fix them. You rebuild yourself. I started waking up earlier. Replaced my nightly whiskey with black coffee. Rewired the home office. Got my license renewed. Changed the locks again, just to be sure. Routine became my weapon. Structure was my shield. People kept asking if I was going to date again. Some even suggested I get back out there. Like betrayal is something you shake off after a few good nights and stronger drinks. I nodded politely, then went back to work. I took on a new contract, a structural audit of a historic courthouse that had been neglected for years. It was poetic. Everyone saw the cracks in that building, but no one had addressed them until now. They'd patched, ignored, decorated over the damage. Sound familiar? The rot was beneath the surface, like most things. I documented everything, line by line, quietly, methodically. That's how you fix what matters. Not with noise, not with declarations, but with discipline. rebar, measurements, pressure points. That's what holds things together, not love, not words. Integrity. My father never followed up. He understood what my silence meant. Lauren never showed up for her things. I assumed she didn't want them anymore. Or maybe she just didn't want to see what a man looks like after surviving her. Either way, the message had been delivered. I don't rebuild what betrays me. I build without it. It's strange what people assume when you go quiet. Some think you're weak. Others think you're plotting. But the truth is, I wasn't doing either. I was simply removing noise. I cut off my old number. Deleted my social media. Let the digital versions of me disappear one by one. Not out of fear, out of necessity. There's something clean about being unreachable. It forces people to sit with what they did. Without distractions. Without explanations. I moved offices next. Gave up the shared space downtown and leased a quiet corner suite across the river. No name on the door. Just a keypad and a steel frame. I worked in silence. 12-hour days. Minimal calls. No small talk. Clients came in for consultations, reviewed blueprints, signed contracts, and left. I didn't chase approval. I didn't network. I executed. And the work spoke for itself. Within 3 months, I'd landed a government contract for retrofitting flood-prone infrastructure. High stakes. No margin for error. It was the kind of job that used to scare me, not because of the complexity, but because of the responsibility. Now, I welcome the weight. Because when people fail you, systems don't. Code, concrete, steel. They hold if you treat them right. And if they crack, you don't beg. You reinforce. One afternoon, I passed by a coffee shop I used to go to with Lauren. The barista recognized me, smiled, asked how married life was going. I paused for a second, then just said, "Didn't stick." She winced, said sorry, but I was already walking out. I didn't know her a backstory. I didn't know anyone anything. The more I let go, the more I understood. People don't need explanations. They need boundaries. And mine had become bulletproof. Around that time, I heard my father had stepped down from his board seat at the local law firm. No press release. No scandal. Just quietly walked away. Guilt, maybe. Shame, probably. But I didn't care enough to find out. My silence had done what shouting never could. It had ended him, professionally, socially, and personally. And Lauren? I didn't see her again. Didn't hear her name. Didn't need to. She no longer existed in any room that mattered. Not because I erased her, but because I moved forward in a direction she couldn't follow. And that's what real closure looks like. Not confrontation. Disconnection. She tried to destroy me with secrets. I dismantled her with truth. Now I lived in a space she couldn't access. Built with discipline. Reinforced with peace. Untouchable. I never celebrated what I did. There was no champagne. No high fives. No victory lap. Because what I achieved wasn't about winning. It was about ending. Ending lies. Ending performance. Ending a chapter that should have closed long before it even started. Lauren had vanished from my life, and my father had disappeared from the public eye. But the most satisfying part wasn't their absence. It was the silence that followed. No one dared ask me for a second chance. Not her, not him, not even mutual friends. They knew. I'd drawn a line that didn't move, no matter who tried to cross it. That kind of silence is earned. And feared. One day, I ran into an old college friend at a supply warehouse. He hadn't heard what happened, just knew the wedding was called off. Said he always admired how I kept things together under pressure. Then he asked, "How'd you keep so calm through all that?" I didn't answer him right away. Because the truth is, I didn't stay calm. I redirected. I took the pain, the betrayal, the humiliation, and I used it as blueprint material. Not to punish, but to build. It became the structure under everything I did after. Not a scar, a foundation. You learn that in engineering, sometimes what collapses wasn't meant to stand. Sometimes the break reveals the weakness that would have failed you later. In the storm, in the flood, in the fire. Better to see it early. Better to let it fall. My office grew. More contracts came in. I hired staff, small team, tight-knit. I didn't tell them about the wedding. They didn't need to know. All they needed to see was how I ran things. Precise. Focused. Uncompromising. Clients respected that. They didn't ask about my past. They just trusted me to hold what mattered. One evening, after locking up the office, I stood outside and looked at the skyline. The same city I was supposed to build a life in with someone who lied at the foundation. But now, it was mine alone. Not in bitterness. In clarity. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. And there's power in that, in knowing you didn't break, even when everything around you did. Power in not needing revenge. Power in choosing stillness when chaos expected reaction. Because when people cross a line and you don't chase them, you win. Not loudly, not violently, but completely. Lauren and my father had each other now. Or maybe not. I never checked. I didn't need closure from them. I had something better. Peace they couldn't touch. It happened 6 months later. Unmarked envelope. No return address. Just my name, typed clean across the front. Inside was a photo. Lauren, standing at a cemetery. Alone. Hair tied back. Dressed in black. One hand over her mouth, like she wasn't sure if she should cry or scream. Below it, a handwritten note. He's gone. Thought you should know. No signature. No explanation. But I knew exactly who he was. My father. I folded the paper once. Set it on the counter. Didn't react. Death doesn't redeem anyone. It just ends their chances to. And I wasn't interested in rewriting history just because the ink stopped flowing. The world wanted closure from me. Some gesture. Some reconciliation. But they didn't understand. I'd already said goodbye. Not with words. With boundaries. When a man burns down the bridge with his own hands, he doesn't get to mourn the distance afterward. I didn't go to the funeral. Didn't send flowers. Didn't ask how he died. Because some chapters don't need epilogues. Just final pages. That night, I walked down to the pier. Watched the water move without a single ripple breaking the rhythm. And I thought about how silence used to hurt me. Used to feel like a prison. Now, it was armor. People say forgiveness is freedom. But I learned something quieter, something colder. Sometimes freedom is letting the past rot without lighting a candle. Lauren tried once more to reach out. A short email. Said she hoped I was doing okay. Attached a link to a blog post she'd written about loss, grief, and the cost of silence. I didn't click it, because silence isn't a cost. It's an investment. One that matures when you stop giving explanations to people who never earned your truth. I archived the email, deleted the photo, burned the note. Then I made a single entry in my private journal. The only place I still left thoughts behind. He died without my voice. She lived without my forgiveness. I live without both. And that's the cleanest ending I'll ever get. That entry had no title, no date. It didn't need one. Because from that day forward, I never spoke their names again. Not in conversation, not in memory, not even in my thoughts. I moved on like they'd never existed. And the strange thing is, that hurt them more than any confrontation ever could. Because the opposite of love isn't hate. It's nothing. And I had perfected the art of nothing. It's been a year now. The apartment's quiet. Not the kind that aches, the kind that breathes. No more half-slept nights. No more checking doors twice. No more wondering what version of someone I'll meet when they walk through the door. I rebuilt everything from the ground up. Not out of bitterness. Out of principle. The new life fits better. Clean lines. Clear rules. No more guessing games dressed as love. Sometimes I see couples in the street, laughing, holding hands, wrapped in that early-stage illusion where everything feels permanent. I don't feel envy. I don't feel cynicism either. I just feel aware. They don't know yet. And maybe they never will. Some people get lucky. Others learn. I learned. Not just about betrayal, or silence, or what people are capable of when they think you'll never find out. I learned about myself. About how deep I can go into pain without sinking. About how much fire I can walk through and still come out without raising my voice. Because that's the final truth no one likes to admit. Some storms don't come to destroy you. They come to clear out everyone who shouldn't have been standing beside you to begin with. Lauren taught me that. My father confirmed it. But I did the rest. And I did it without revenge. Without drama. Without spectacle. I just made decisions. Strong ones. Quiet ones. Permanent ones. Now I sit at the same desk where I once rewrote my vows and set the flash drive beside the keyboard. Not out of ritual, just as a reminder. That moment at the altar, that was never about rage. It was about reclaiming my voice, my space, my peace. And I did it in front of everyone. Not to embarrass them, but to free myself. To let them show the truth with their own voices. They did. And I listened. And then I left. That's the story. No dramatic twist at the end. No sudden redemption arc. Just a man who walked into hell wearing a tailored suit. And walked out cleaner than anyone expected. Because the strongest men don't burn the world down when they're betrayed. They rebuild their own. Brick by brick. With no audience. No applause. And no second chances. Now, when people ask how I handled it all, I just say this. Some men scream. Some men beg. And some quietly remove you from the story forever. And then I go on with my day, like nothing ever happened. Because to me, it didn't. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.